Hey everybody. This video is going to provide a follow-up discussion of the poster that you were asked to look at for the week 4 discussion. So in week 4, the image that was presented to you was a poster from Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And that image has two children in the forefront. One is holding a Kinder chocolate egg and the other one is holding a gun. And we were asked to study the image and think about what the argument is and answer some questions about it. So we're going to discuss that here for just a few minutes before you move on to do the journal for week 5. So as I stated, the image shows two children in the forefront. We have a little boy who's holding a Kinder chocolate egg, and then a little girl who is holding a weapon. They're in a classroom, and up above them are the words, "One child is holding something that's been banned in America to protect them. Guess which one?" And then at the bottom, it says, "We won't sell Kinder chocolate eggs in the interest of child safety. Why not assault weapons?" And then you have the website, momsdemandaction.org. And then in the very bottom right-hand corner, you have their sort of logo, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. So that's what we see when we look at the image. We see the picture and the text. So what is the issue being presented in this argument? The issue is obviously one of gun control. The statement, the claim that is being communicated, I would say is probably taking the question and kind of turning it into a statement. In the interest of child safety, we should ban assault weapons, right? Who do you think is the intended audience? Well, I would say everyone at first, right? Let's assume that they're trying to present an argument and persuade people, right? So therefore, the audience would be people who are opposed to these types of bans on weapons, or people who are on the fence. That makes sense, right? If you're presenting an argument, the idea is that you're trying to persuade those who disagree with you or those who are still undecided on the issue. We'll talk a little bit more about the intended audience as we get into more of the proofs that are used. I think you could also say that the audience is a more localized group or a more focused group for the audience would be parents, right? We're using children as our means of displaying our argument here. I think you could say that our government is perhaps part of the intended audience as well. They're the ones who would have to go about making such bans. So we have our wide audience and then kind of some more specialized groups within the audience. Do you detect any assumptions in the argument? Does the arguer assume anything about the audience based on how the argument is presented? Well, obviously, they're assuming that we want to protect children, right? We want to keep them safe. They're probably also assuming that we want to keep them safe at any cost. They're probably assuming that we think it's okay to ban any type of gun. They're probably assuming that we will empathize, that we will be able to imagine what it would be like to lose a child to gun violence. I think that you can say that there's also this assumption that children should be safe at school, hence the reason why they're shown in the classroom. So we're not just talking about protecting children from guns in general. It seems as though they are definitely making a point about school shootings in particular. But obviously they're assuming that we're going to want to protect children in school at any cost. So what reasons or evidence are given to support their position, looking at all the different types of proofs. So we have ethos, which is an appeal to character. Not sure that you could really find a lot of appeal to character in this particular poster. I suppose you could make the argument that their logo, their group name, Moms Demand Action, it's not just parents, it's moms. And perhaps we do respect mothers, the fact that it's a group of moms putting forth this ad campaign, that might appeal to their credibility, perhaps. But I don't think that ethos is the driving force behind the argument. So what about pathos? Well, no, we're going to wait on pathos. We're going to go to logic first. So what about logos? Thinking of our different types of logical proofs that can be used. I think that we have an analogy being used here. So we have the little boy holding the Kinder chocolate egg, and then the little girl holding the gun, and the words at the bottom, we won't sell Kinder chocolate eggs to children in the interest of child safety. So why not assault weapons? And the analogy is that protecting children from the harms of Kinder chocolate eggs is similar or the same as protecting children from gun violence. So they are equating those two. They are comparing them. And we are supposed to think that because we banned the Kinder eggs, we should also ban the assault weapons. I think that's the biggest form of logic that's being used here, is that analogy. But obviously the driving force of the poster is in its pathos, appeal to pathos. Remember, pathos is emotion. So we have a decent mix. They're shooting for the logic, right? They're trying to get us to think logically about the argument. But the fact that they're showing these two children in a classroom and the little girl is holding the gun, they're definitely pulling on our heartstrings, our how we value children. We value protecting our children. It's our duty, it's our responsibility to protect children. So it's a good balance of logos and pathos being used to present the argument. I think we could get into whether or not the logos, the logic, is sound. When you look at that analogy, is banning assault weapons really the same as banning Kinder chocolate eggs? Who are anyone else's rights being taken away by banning Kinder chocolate eggs versus is anyone else's rights being taken away by banning assault weapons? You also have the question of the logic between the image and the words, because the words are talking about assault weapons and the little girl, the gun she's holding. I don't know a whole lot about guns, but I do believe it's an AR-15, which is the type of gun that's used. I'm not even sure how many of the mass shootings, but they get talked about a lot whenever mass shootings occur. And a lot of people think that the AR-15 is an assault rifle. I have read arguments that it is actually not an assault rifle. The AR actually stands for Armalite rifle, which was the company that originally designed them. So the AR doesn't even stand for what a lot of people think it stands for. But there's also a lot of arguments in terms of the details, the very specifics as to what constitutes an assault weapon. Um, so there is perhaps a breakdown in the logic there as well, that the gun she's holding does not actually constitute the type of gun that's mentioned in the text at the bottom of the picture. That's getting into some very nitpicky details about the argument. You could easily say that, well, okay, maybe what she's holding doesn't officially fall under the category of an assault weapon. However, if that's the type of gun that's being used in mass shootings, it should still be part of the argument. There's so much to say about this. But they're trying to present us with a combination of logic and pathos, logic and emotion, to get us to agree with their stance. Anytime you put children in the picture, you are appealing to pathos. It's almost always the case because of our ties to children and how emotionally involved we are when it comes to children. So it's interesting to see the setting of the picture. We could talk a lot about why they chose to put them in a classroom. We could talk about their facial expressions and adding to that emotion. They're both very serious. They don't really look like kids who are playful or having fun or feeling good about where they are. So the pathos runs deep, and then there's that logic that's being used, that attempt at logic using that analogy. Is the argument effective? Here's where we want to go back to who the intended audience is. If it's an argument, like I said before, we're assuming that their purpose is to persuade people who disagree with them or who are still undecided on the issue. Would this argument be effective on an audience who is still undecided on this issue? Well, perhaps. If you're still undecided and you see this image and you think about the fact that we've banned these Kinder chocolate eggs, but yet we have not done anything to ban assault weapons, when you feel the emotion coming from the picture, you could perhaps be persuaded, in which case the argument is effective. But, a huge part of the audience are those who disagree, and if the purpose of this poster is to enact change, to get something done, to get laws passed, you really are trying to persuade the people who disagree, who are, the roadblocks in front of you to making these laws happen. And would this argument work? Would it be persuasive to those who disagree with the issue? And I'm not sure it would. And I think part of it has to do with the analogy that's being used. It's not the soundest of analogies. Like I said before, banning Kinder chocolate eggs is an entirely different issue from banning any kind of weapon. And then there's also that question that I'm not even sure of myself, as to what constitutes an assault weapon, and if that gun she's holding is truly an assault weapon. So I don't know that the poster is effective in persuading those who disagree with the issue from the start. It's almost as if it's there to reinforce the beliefs of those who already agree. I'm going to be interested to see what everyone has to say about this in the discussion. I don't really want to get into our own opinions on this issue. Remember, we're analyzing. right? And we're looking at all the parts and how it makes up the whole, and looking to see how the argument is made, rather than our own opinions about the argument. But if you have any additional comments or questions, let me know. Otherwise, you are free to go ahead and complete the week 5 journal, and kind of give me your follow-up, your overall conclusions about this argument. And I look forward to reading those as well.